ECHO TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of health, safety, emergency preparedness, ethnic and nonprofit agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.
Hello and welcome to ECHO, which stands for Emergency, Community, Health and Outreach. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, Executive Director for ECHO. We provide information in different languages: English, Southeast Asian languages, Hispanic, African, and more. This program this time is about domestic abuse and your safety. We'll speak with some guest experts, but first, watch this.
No person deserves to be abused. Domestic abuse can be physical or emotional. It can be from a family member or a partner, teens or adults. It can be a single incident or a pattern of behavior for years. Domestic abuse involves power and control by one person over another. Domestic abuse is also called domestic violence. Domestic abuse can be pushing or hitting. Abusers can also punch, strangle, and choke. Abuse can involve weapons like guns and knives. Domestic abuse may include sexual assault. Domestic abuse can also be emotional. Some examples are name-calling, accusation of affairs, stalking, repeated phone calls or texts, keeping a person awake, and constant belittling, making a person feel threatened or afraid. Abusers' behavior can also be humiliating or intimidating. They may control money, where a person goes, who they see, and who they talk to. Abusers try to isolate victims from family and friends and may cause the victim to lose their job. Abusers sometimes use children or family pets to scare their victims. Abusers may threaten to hurt or take children and pets to control their victim. No one deserves to be abused. You don't have to put up with it. Domestic violence happens in every neighborhood and affects people of all ages and backgrounds. Domestic abuse can happen in any relationship, home, or community. Victims of domestic abuse are usually women. You deserve to be safe. There is help. If you are being abused, tell someone you trust, like family or friends. Whether you stay or plan to leave, make a plan for your safety that includes your children. Think about what works best to keep you safe in an emergency. Know someone you can call if there is a crisis. You may need to leave quickly. Put important papers, extra money, keys, and clothing in a safe place. Identify escape routes and places to go if you need to get away from an unsafe situation quickly. You are not alone. There are resources to help you. Advocates can help you. Shelters can help you. Keep trusted friends, family members, or an advocate aware of your plans. They can help you be safe and help you access resources if you need to. If you are in immediate danger, call 911. In Minnesota, you can call a crisis intervention number at 1-866-223-1111. In Minneapolis or other parts of Hennepin County, you can visit the Domestic Abuse Service Center in the Hennepin County Government Center or call 612-348-5073 for assistance. And from anywhere in the country, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. That number will have information about services in your area, so you can get the help you deserve.
Welcome back. You're watching ECHO, Emergency, Community, Health and Outreach. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. This program is about domestic abuse and your safety, and we have several qualified guests to bring us this information. First, joining us, Mike Freeman, the Hennepin County Attorney from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, and we have Taylor Budensick from the Domestic Abuse Project. She is a legal advocate, and also Rachel Sibley joining us from Tubman as the Senior Staff Attorney from Tubman. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
Very challenging topic, I know. Tough to talk about, but important to all of our cultures, including this program in English. And Rachel, we're going to start with you. Let's define it so we have a bit of a platform. What exactly do we mean by domestic abuse?
Domestic abuse is a pattern of behavior used to gain and maintain power and control over an intimate partner who you are in a relationship with. It can include physical abuse, which would be hitting or hurting somebody, psychological or emotional abuse, such as intimidation, threats, bullying. It could be sexual abuse or sexual coercion. It can include economic or financial controls. It can also include scare tactics such as, "I'll take your children," or "I will report you to immigration if you call the police."
Mm-hmm. So it seems to be, and Mike, this is addressed to you, it seems to be in the court system, maybe what we see in the media a lot is the physical violence around domestic abuse, but it's more than that.
Well, the violence often manifests itself in physical violence, but it's emotional, it's social, it's ostracization, it's all sorts of things, but it all engenders in which people in an intimate relationship, one takes a dominant position and abuses the other.
Mm-hmm. How about in Hennepin County? And I know this program is made in Minnesota, but the topic does apply in other states. We should just say, fair to say, for other states, web viewers that may be watching this program, we're being specific now about Hennepin County, the biggest county here in this area, but it is a problem.
It's a major problem, and I think it's one of those where we only see the tip of the iceberg. Tragically, too often we see the cases after they proceeded beyond mere hitting, slight injuries until it's very serious injuries. Mm-hmm. All the studies that I've ever read said we can do something best about domestic abuse if we intervene early. Mm-hmm. But we can't intervene early if people don't allow us to do that.
And the people we're talking about are victims, right? Oftentimes, Taylor, how do we define victims, per se, of domestic abuse?
Well, victims of domestic abuse are usually women, girls, or children, but men and boys can also be victims, and all communities are affected, including immigrants. Domestic violence has no face. This affects everyone. It can be senior citizens, our gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered communities. It can even be teens who may not even recognize that they're being abused.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe the obvious question right now is, how do you know if you're being abused? What's a healthy relationship? How do we define that?
A healthy relationship is one that is based on shared responsibility and decision making. It's one that is based on mutual trust, mm-hmm. And accountability mm-hmm. between each other for the relationship.
Mm-hmm. And it seems simple, okay, but it's not. It gets complicated. Pressures add up. And people act out, but it's when you cross the line that domestic abuse becomes a very serious issue. There are some practices too where it's permissible, or maybe, I don't mean permissible like okay, but there's some cultures when we have immigrants, refugees, and different cultures coming here and getting used to new norms and new cultures and new practices. How do we explain some of that when we're talking about domestic violence around sexual activity or around partnership situations?
Well, almost everyone in this country is an immigrant. It doesn't matter whether your parentage is from Sweden and Norwegian or Slovenia or Africa or Asia. We're all immigrants with the exception of our native brothers and sisters. But when you come to this country, our culture, the American culture, our laws do not permit violence among intimate persons. It's not acceptable for men to abuse women, and that's where we see it. Mm-hmm. Now, sexual and domestic abuse is a learned technique. No one has in their genome, I am an abuser. They learn it. Young boys learn it from fathers or brothers or uncles or other males in life. And if people try to excuse that conduct because of cultural, that's not acceptable here. Violence against women or others in an intimate relationship is against the law, And we in the prosecutor's offices and the police offices take it very seriously and do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And so what if someone feels like, Taylor, what if someone, a victim, feels as though they're in an abusive situation? What should they do for help?
Well, they need to reach out if they're comfortable calling, an agency, if they're comfortable speaking with their doctor. Usually, I know when you go to the doctor, they try and ask you those questions. If they speak with a family or a friend, it's important for those people to listen, let them know they're heard, direct them to the proper places. In Minnesota, you can call the crisis intervention number, which is 1-866-223-1111. You can also, here in the cities, call 211 and 311, and they can direct you to other resources. It's important that victims speak up and that the people that they speak to let them know that they're heard and that it's not okay that they're being abused.
So it is important to listen if you are not a qualified professional.
Exactly.
A neighbor maybe.
Exactly.
Someone has come to you and shared risky information, what could be risky information.
And they should direct them to an advocate as well, because as advocates we're trained to deal with those situations. We're trained to send them to the resources that they need, help them if they need orders for protection, if they need to make a police report, things like this.
Now, what if they're in the process, victims are in the process of making this decision? How can they be safe in their home while they're trying to decide where to go for help?
Well, the ultimate entity that provides for personal safety in this state and most of the United States is the police. And many women, and there are some men who are abused, but 95% of the cases we see in Hennepin County are women being abused, have to know that police have been specially trained. And they should understand, and they should be empathetic, and they should be supportive. If police come to a scene in which domestic abuse is occurring, they will separate the partners. They will not make judgments, but they will separate and they will start the peace. So the first thing you have to do is to stop that actual violence, and the police are your best advocates to help you do that.
Now, Taylor, how about you? What do you think from you've seen it in the victims and reaching out as an advocate too for victims? Is there anything they can do while they're in this situation in addition to seeking police support?
Yes, a safety plan is definitely the first step. That's the first thing we do when victims call us as advocates, is help them make a safety plan. What can you do to be safe right now where you are? And the first step of that is knowing your partner's abusive cues. Do they ball up their fists? Do they make threats? So you can preempt that. Also knowing escape routes from your home. If your home has more than one floor, knowing from each floor where to go, having things together, important documents, bank statements, if you need your credit cards, your welfare documents, immigration, any other court documents, clothes for you and your children, having all those things together in case you need to flee. Also knowing people you can call if you need to call a family member, a friend. Teaching your children how to call the police and when to call the police is also very important.
Hard to think about these things. I'm listening to you, and it's a lot of things to think about. And then if you get to a spot where you are able to say, I need to take legal action, there's a tool that folks can use, and that's an order for protection. What is an order for protection?
An order for protection is an order granted by the court that prohibits the abuser from having contact and doing domestic violence or hurting someone else. You have to petition for an order for protection. In Minnesota, you can go to your local courthouse or online to Minnesota Court Forms and find the application. I would suggest contacting your local domestic abuse program, because there are legal advocates that will help you fill out the paperwork and assist you with that. Besides the form, you have to recount or tell the court of recent incidents that have happened between you and the abusive person.
Have to have proof for all of this?
You do. And so it's really good to collect photographs of any injuries, collect any text messages with threatening, of threats that were made, any other, hard evidence, perhaps a ripped shirt that happened
Maybe
during
a witness,
unfortunately,
yes. To say. Sometimes that happens.
But let me say, this shouldn't be, and it really isn't in practice, that intimidating. We have wonderful advocate centers like Tubman and the Domestic Abuse Project that people who empathize and can get involved in Hennepin County with the Domestic Abuse Service Center, a one-stop shop for victims, survivors of domestic abuse, where they can get their order for protection. We'll have their case investigated. We'll even charge it on the spot. And by the way, we have daycare for the kids and a big burly policeman to make sure that your abuser doesn't get there. I think the system here in Minnesota really cares and reaches out. And if nothing else, you can come see us blue-shirted prosecutors, because every single prosecutor's office has someone trained in domestic abuse. So the important thing is escape, have your plan, take your most precious documents with you, and seek help. And if you do, all of us are there to help.
And know you're not alone. Victims need to know you're not alone.
It's a key message. And if you get to a spot where you're going to press charges, you know, Mike, you've got somebody to handhold you through the process too, it sounds like, through the court system.
Come see your local friendly prosecutor. And yes, we present these in a court of law, and we have to have evidence, but many people who are victims of domestic abuse think they're the only ones, and no one else has had this, and no one else has lived through this. Well, that's just simply not true. We've seen these cases, and between these wonderful nonprofits that work hard at this and those of us in government, we can help. And I think you will hear a empathetic voice. You'll hear someone who understands, is not judgmental.
Yeah.
And wants to help you. Now, we do have to have evidence. We have a society of rule of law, but we'll help you get there.
Okay, great. What if you think you need to leave an abusive situation? You've got your safety plan, you're ready to go. You mentioned some things that you should have ready to go. It's just as simple as that. Have a safe place to go, whether it's a shelter, family, friend. Is that pretty much the recommendation right now?
Yes, make sure. And if you don't have family or friends nearby, I know a lot of our victims, the abusers have had them move somewhere and isolated them that much. It's knowing the numbers to call for advocates, and we can help you find a shelter. You know, we have emergency funds. We can cab you to our office. We're here for you. We're here to help you. We're here to support you and listen.
And I'll just remind viewers that if you're not in Hennepin County, Twin Cities, or state of Minnesota, whose resources may exist locally in your area as well, start with your provider office or attorney's office or another advocate center for some ideas. What if you can't leave? What if you have to stay put while you're getting this together? I'm thinking of children in particular, Rachel. If you just can't leave right now, should one parent notify the school and give them a heads up? If there's children in the school system, for instance?
You can. I think it's really important to do a safety plan with your child and give your child some emergency phone numbers that they can utilize. I've even had children write phone numbers inside their shoes. I think that the person can go and talk to the school. School is a great place. They'll reach out and try to protect the children. They're mandated
Any
reporters.
resources in faith-based communities too, perhaps, if folks go there for support?
I think our different religious communities are very, very supportive, are aware of the resources that are out there, and would direct a person that is seeking shelter to one of the shelter programs.
To get some support.
We have a very unique system in Minnesota where you can call one number and access all the different shelters. And that number is 1-866-223-1111.
Toll free, anywhere in Minnesota.
Anywhere in Minnesota.
If the abuser has left the home, change the locks?
Change the locks.
Right away.
Account for all of the spare keys. Don't hide a spare key outside somewhere. Check the windows. If you have a landlord, that's something that you might be able to work with them on.
To get things going. Mike, if you've been able to get some documentation about this abuse that's been going on, and maybe a witness, whatever you need to, you've been working through a process, what can happen to the abuser in this?
Well, you've heard us talk, and I think everyone's very empathetic to the victim survivor. We're not so empathetic to the perpetrator. We collect the evidence. Police will often arrest them. We will charge them, and there's a variety of things. We can prosecute them. We can put them in the workhouse, which is the local facility. Sometimes, if it's severe enough, they go to prison. This is no, oops, sorry, golly gee whiz, I made a mistake. You know, what we know is it's really important to have meaningful consequences right away. Now, we also know that many times the victim survivors are dependent upon the perpetrator for their economic well-being. Well, these wonderful folks in their operations have short-term resources to help. You can't stay in an abusive relationship merely because of economics. The government can help with that as well.
So there's some gap funding there to help through some of those situations.
Let me address something else that I missed. It's important to get that order for protection early on. You get that order for protection, the police have special records of that. So if they get a call and somebody calls from your house because it's occurring, that domestic abuse order is noticed and it's online, and the police can access that. And then they know that this is a difficult situation when they arrive, and they'll come in and they'll separate the parties immediately. I think there's an old stereotype that because the majority of cops are men, that we're always going to side with the side of the man in an abusive relationship. It's clearly the opposite. We empathize with the victim. We usually can tell when we walk in the door who it is. And if we have that order of protection, you've taken that time with their assistance or ours, that's a great tool to provide additional safety.
Is there any hope in this for the abusers? Let's say they've been through the program, maybe they've been arrested, now maybe they are. I mean, can abusers get help for this? Can you turn that wheel around?
I believe it's a learned behavior, and therefore it takes professional help to unlearn that behavior. Intervention is critical at the sooner the better. It may come in the form of police intervention. It may come in form of domestic abuse counseling that is ordered by the courts, or in response, holding them accountable through the criminal justice system. I think they can change. I think victims shouldn't believe promises that are made by abusers.
And that tends to be a pattern. It's a repetitive pattern over and over and over. That's one question I want to ask all of you. How much time of abuse? It can't really be defined by time. Is it more than one incident? 3 or 4 incidents? 5 or 6?
Any of the above.
Yeah.
One incident, it's domestic abuse.
But I want to reinforce, it's a learned technique.
Yeah.
Nobody has this in their genes. And that's why early intervention and early involvement, people can unlearn this behavior. And the earlier you get it, you have to look at a young man, even if something as miscellaneous as hitting their sister, that's just not acceptable. And one of the things in working with young men, and I'm not a professional in that, I just ask the young man have they ever seen their mother being hit? Do they want to see their mother hit like that? And boy, it just clicks in, and all of a sudden, because almost everybody honors their mother.
Really, this is a community problem, and we can work together to resolve this community problem.
Yes.
Okay. We just have a minute left. Let's get the numbers out there again. Where can victims turn to for help if they find themselves in a domestic violence situation, a domestic abuse situation, be it emotional, physical, or any of the others that we've mentioned today?
Yeah. In Minnesota, the Crisis Intervention Minnesota number is 1-866-223-1111, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which anywhere in the nation is 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233.
Fabulous, fabulous. Last word. There's hope.
There's hope, but we need to know what's going on. If we don't know what's going on behind those closed doors, we can't help.
Speak up. You'll be heard.
Contact your local domestic abuse program. They can help you.
Wonderful. I want to thank all 3 of you for being guests on this ECHO program. I know we barely scratched the surface on this particular subject. We'll try to boil it down into 4 key messages and send you to a web link for more information. First off, everyone deserves to be safe. Second key is help is available for anyone who is abused. Thirdly, if you are abused, it is not your fault and you are not alone. There is hope. And lastly, domestic abuse is not just about hitting someone. There are other forms of abuse. Learn about it. And here's how. You can visit our website for more information, www.echominnesota.org. I'd like to thank Mike Taylor, and Rachel for joining us on the program today. I'm your host, Lily McDonald. You've been watching Echo Minnesota. We bring you information in many different languages. We appreciate you for watching. Join us again next time.
Echo TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of Health, Safety, Emergency Preparedness, Ethnic and Nonprofit Agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.